as is Rappahannock and Shenandoah. And I looked up Shenandoah because I've heard about it, and it's derived from the Algonquin Shinhandoi, the literal translation of which has been thought to be spruce stream, Great Plains, or beautiful daughter of the stars. That's the one I like the most, beautiful daughter of the stars, because it really is a beautiful place here, Shenandoah Valley. Let's get started. Okay, as usual, you'll get a few notes from me at the end with some links. My email, rusty@getsetup.io. Let me know if you learn anything from the classes. Want to come visit the Shenandoah Valley? Look me up. Today, we're going to explore the many offerings of Western Virginia, not to be confused with West Virginia, different state. Some active outdoor sites, hiking, paddling, mountain biking. Okay, on a map, this is the Shenandoah Valley. This is Virginia. This is actually like a vintner's map or something like that of the wine growing areas of Virginia. But it very conveniently shows the whole Shenandoah Valley in orange. So on the east side of the Shenandoah Valley are the Blue Ridge Mountains. So when you leave the Chesapeake Bay and it's flat, you head west, you come into what they call the Piedmont of Virginia, which are like the rolling hills, and then the hills get bigger. And then you hit the Blue Ridge, which is kind of a ridge, but it's all sorts of mixture of mountains. It's not like a straight line. And then you go over the Blue Ridge, and you come into the Shenandoah Valley. It's about 40 miles wide at places. And on the other side of the Allegheny Mountains. So the Allegheny Mountains, they continue on all the way through West Virginia. So that's someone's likened the Allegheny Mountains like you take a loose carpet on your floor and you just kind of scrunch it up. So it's got all these little ridges and bumps. And that's kind of what the Allegheny Mountains are like. I actually see the Allegheny Mountains as a crow flies. They're about 7 miles west of me, and I view them off my deck every day when there's not fog. So anyway, and the Blue Ridge is about 25 miles or so east of me. And that's, well, we'll be talking about that more, but that gives you a location. The general end is Lexington, Virginia. And of course, Winchester, Virginia is at the northern end, big wide valley here. And I should point out that even though a sort of valley continues on all the way down through the rest of Virginia, that's a different watershed. So this is the Shenandoah River watershed, kind of considered the Shenandoah Valley. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the attractions of the Shenandoah Valley, and they're not necessarily in order. They're going to be very subjective, what kind of things you like or not. But I think that the first one I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to call it the number one gem, is Stanton, Virginia. And I'll stop midway through here and show you a map again. I should have shown you a different map at the beginning, because you don't know where I live in Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg's about 25 miles north of Stanton. Stanton is a charming town, old town. It has, it's got the best preserved architecture in the valley, in my opinion. It's got all this classic art, and it's big. It's classic architecture from the late 19th, early 20th century, well preserved, beautifully taken care of. It's an arts town. There's lots of, there's a women's college, well, it's actually a co-ed college now. And I'll show you something else that it has in a second. But anyway, during COVID, they put these stanchions up and they blocked off the main street through town so people could eat out in the road, because there's lots of good restaurants in town. So Stanton is home to the American Shakespeare Center, which is the North America's only year-round repertory Shakespeare theater. There are two other year-round Shakespeare theaters, San Diego, out near Nicky, well, out that direction at least, and Stratford, Ontario in Canada, but they're not repertory. Repertory means the same group of actors does multiple plays, and they, every week they do each play once or twice. That's called being a repertory. And that's another view of the American Shakespeare Center. This is looking at it from the north, and this is looking at it from the south. When you look at from the north, you can see this hotel up here. I'll show you this in a second. So here's the hotel, and that's the Hotel 24 South Conference Center. Now, let me show you something here in a second. What is unique about the American Shakespeare Center is its architecture. Now, it's called the world's only recreation of Shakespeare's indoor theater. And when I say that, a lot of people say, oh, we didn't know that Shakespeare had an indoor theater. We know about, we know about the his other theaters in London, which, were open to the sky, but we didn't know about that he had an indoor theater. And there was one called the Blackfriars. It had been once a monastery. The Globe the Globe is technically considered an outdoor theater because the roof is open in the center. And when Henry VIII dissolved all the monasteries in the 16th century and gave the property to his friends, somehow the Blackfriars came up, for sale, and Shakespeare's company bought it, and they performed plays indoors there. The original Blackfriars is no longer there, and they don't have photos of it or drawings, but they have drawings of similar theaters indoor at the time. So they've reconstructed to look like that. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. We'll look at the American Shakespeare Center. Okay, American Shakespeare Center, because the inside, the interior, is one of the most beautiful things you ever see. By the way, they're doing Romeo and Juliet. That's Romeo and Juliet. And this is what is so cool. Look at that. It is theater on three sides. All right. So this is on the stage, and there's an audience directly in front of, very close and directly in front of the stage. And then there is audience on both sides of the stage. So looking in from the side, including up high, there's a balcony wrapping around three sides. The lights are on all the time, so the audience can see each other. The actors can see the audience. And so it's a very intimate feel. And this is actually the staging conditions from Shakespeare's time. They didn't have lights, shining down, spotlights like we have in modern theater, and, house lights that go out or anything like that. And so often the actors interact with the audience. It's a lot of fun. It's world-class Shakespeare. These are some of the best Shakespearean actors in the world that are at the American Shakespeare Center. So if you have a chance to come to Harrisonburg, to the Shenandoah Valley, make sure you get down to Stanton, where the American Shakespeare Center is. You can stay in this hotel right next door, the Hotel 24 South. There's also lots of shopping, dining, arts, antique, and charm in Harrisonburg. In Stanton, Harrisonburg is not quite as charming, but anyway, just a beautiful town, well preserved. And I could spend all day walking around. There's also this formerly women's college, now co-ed, Mary Baldwin University in town, is a beautiful place as well. The number two attraction, or the second attraction I'll tell you about in the Shenandoah Valley, is the Skyline Drive. Technically it's up on the mountains. It's not in the valley, but it basically borders one whole side of the valley. And the Shenandoah National Park is one of the few national parks that are in the east. Of course, there's other National Park Service places in the east besides Shenandoah National Park. But this is one of the few actual national parks which are meant to completely preserve, the place. And the number one attraction of that is what I call is the Skyline Drive. It's 105 miles long, starts in Front Royal, Virginia. So Front Royal is about an hour west of Washington, D.C. And it goes 105 miles down to Fishkill Gap near Waynesboro, Virginia. It has 75 overlooks. So about every mile and a quarter or so, you can pull over and you can look to the west, to the Shenandoah Valley. You can look east to the Piedmont. It's just fabulous. There's a 35 mile per hour speed limit, so nobody's speeding on it. You take your time. Also in it is Big Meadows Lodge and the Skyland Lodge, so you can stay up on Skyline Drive in some nice lodges. There's also a lot of camping, and there are also cottages, cabins. And the Appalachian Trail runs parallel to it the whole way. And just to give you an idea, so about a third of the way down is, about a quarter of the way down is Skyland Lodge. And then a little bit farther on is Big Meadows Lodge. And those are places that were constructed in the 1930s and 40s in their classic architecture. There's hundreds of miles of hiking trails. There's waterfalls. This is from Hawksbill Summit, which is the highest point along the Skyline Drive. It's a very easy hike, like a half a mile. You don't have to climb very high, and you get up there and you can see 270 degrees around. You can see almost all directions. This is actually looking north. That's the Shenandoah Valley over there to the west. These are friends of ours from Germany. This girl right here was our exchange student. She's like another daughter in our family. This is Big Meadows Lodge in this classic kind of Art Deco period late, but very, very rustic combination architecture. You can sit outside on the porch. This is actually a wedding, but you can sit outside the porch and read books. They have very nice, very affordable, very nice rooms. They have restaurants. You can get 3 meals a day. And again, it's just a great place to stop and visit. You can also just stop there for a meal. So Skyline Drive. Teresa.
Yes, and Russ also mentioned they revitalized the lodge. It's so nice. I've stayed there before, and they have horseback riding. They also have live entertainment at their restaurant. They have a lot of things there at the Shenandoah Valley.
They do, and I forgot Teresa lives up in Alexandria. She's not far. You're about an hour's drive at the most to Front Royal, where you can pick up Skyline Drive. So that's right. They have in the last decade or two, they've refurbished both lodges. They're very nice inside. Okay. Number 3 is Massanutten Ski Resort. So let me show you here on a map so you get an idea, because a lot of people don't realize there's a ski resort, that there even might be a ski resort anywhere in this area. And I'll show you where it is on a map. So here's where I am in Harrisonburg, and I'll zoom out a little bit to give you some perspective. There's a Shenandoah Valley right there, starting up in Winchester, going down to Lexington. Harrisonburg is almost halfway up, up and down midway of the valley. But if you look at the Shenandoah Valley, you'll notice this is the Blue Ridge over here. These are the Allegheny Mountains over here. This is a third ridge that goes partway down the valley. Actually, it's a series of ridges all running parallel to each other called the Massanutten. That's older than either the Allegheny Mountains or the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Massanutten Ridge is very old. It's also national forest. It's got great hiking. It ends right around, here's Harrisonburg right there. So it ends right around Harrisonburg. There's Massanutten. And it has a ski resort that is one of the prime ski resorts in the East. You can see some of the ski runs here. They make snow if they need to. It also has a golf course if you're into playing golf. Lots and lots and lots of condos, all sorts of places to stay. And by the way,
you could also rent a house. I used to go with a group when we rent a vacation house there.
That's right. Back in these woods, you can't tell it. There are houses. There's roads snaking all back in here, and people own homes. There's people live there year round. So it's really beautiful. And like, this is summer, so people go up there to play golf. Also, I don't know if anyone here in this group is into it, but you can rent a mountain bike, and the ski lift will take you to the top of the ski run, and you can mountain bike all the way down the ski run. That's it in winter. This is in summer.
And
this is looking the water park open year round. This is looking north toward the south. So this down here is the end of the Massanutten Ridge. This is standing down the edge on the southern edge, looking north. So you can see it's kind of a big, strange bowl here at the end of Massanutten. So a couple of my kids have gotten ski passes and gone out there every weekend to ski. Number 4 is a relatively new site in the Shenandoah Valley. It is the Blue Ridge Tunnel. This was opened just a little over a year ago. It was a railroad tunnel. It was the first railroad tunnel built through the Eastern Mountains on the way, like toward the Ohio Valley. And I'll show you on a map where it is. It is right. Let's see if I can look on this view. Okay. So if I come back in here to Harrisonburg, This, by the way, down here, Wintergreen Resort is the other ski place. But right down here, this is Interstate 64, cuts right over the Blue Ridge, and this is the Skyline Drive. It ends there, and then it picks up and becomes the Blue Ridge Parkway. So it continues on. That's the Blue Ridge Parkway is a national parkway, and underneath Afton Mountain here is the Blue Ridge Tunnel. So there's a trailhead here on this side, and it comes through over here at Afton. So it goes right straight underneath, about 700 feet below this gap. Gap is kind of a low spot in the mountains, right? 700 feet below Rockfish Gap is the Blue Ridge Tunnel. And I've hiked it with my wife. It was constructed in the 1850s. And the idea was to take with the railroad through the Blue Ridge to get into the Shenandoah Valley and then beyond into the Allegheny Mountains. It was in use all the way up until about 1940, when the engines became too big to go through it. So they bored a second tunnel right next to it through the mountain. And that's what they actually still use. This tunnel was closed up they thought they could maybe use it for storing natural gas. So they plugged up the two ends thinking they'd have a gigantic gas tank, but it leaked. So they gave up on that idea. So then they had this beautiful tunnel all plugged up with 12 feet of concrete at each end. And about 20 years ago, the two rural counties on each side of it said, hey, we've got this great tunnel. Let's reopen it. They bored through the concrete, shored up everything inside. And in December of 2020, and during the pandemic, they reopened it. You can actually see it's 3,300 feet long, so about 3/4 of a mile. And this is the western entrance. The western entrance is faced with stone. So it's a type of stone. It's a little bit crumbly, so they had to face it. And you can see the eastern end just tiny right there. There are no lights in it. So if you want to walk it, and by the way, it's a very popular thing to walk. If you want to walk it, you have to have a headlamp or a flashlight or something, because when you get in the dead center of it, that's the definition of pitch black. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. This is the trail that goes up to the western entrance. It's a little bit of a contour, it goes up and down. Here's give you an idea. The west portal is right off of Route 250. East portal's at this end, and the current railroad runs through right next to it. They're hoping someday, this is the trail from the highway, from Route 250 down to the portal. They're hoping someday they might be able to continue this trail right on down somewhere along into the town of Waynesboro, so people could bike all the way through from one end to the other. There's the eastern side. The eastern side is not faced. It's solid rock. They could just bore right through it. You can see somewhere back through there's the western portal of the Blue Ridge Tunnel. So anyway, great amenity. It's a fun hike. It's about 2 miles total if you start at one trailhead, and then 4 miles total if you start at one trailhead, walk to the other trailhead and back. So it's a great fun walk. Very little climbing. Okay, number 5, a fifth attraction in the Shenandoah Valley is one you might not imagine. It is the Wine and Spirits Trail. There are over 52 breweries, wineries, distilleries, and cideries in the Shenandoah Valley. I'm not talking about over on the other side of the Blue Ridge in the Piedmont area, which has been known for decades to have vineyards and is a good wine growing area. I'm talking about just the Shenandoah Valley. When I found out that number, I was astounded. And I've been doing this class for about 6 or 8 months, so there's probably more than that now. They did discover it's a good area for growing grapes. So we actually have 3 vineyards within a short drive of my home. We have 3 microbreweries in town here. North and south of us, there are some cideries, and all the little towns going up the valley, there is a huge number of breweries, cideries, distilleries, and vineyards. There's this trail. I'm not sure I would recommend someone get in a car and drive the trail, stopping with sampling every few miles. Probably not safe. But, you could stay at a winery overnight or stay in one of the towns that has nearly all the small towns going up the valley have at least one brew pub. And out in the country, there are cideries, because the Shenandoah Valley was once upon a time, maybe about 100 years ago, a big apple growing region.
So, Russ, if I want to try those microbreweries and the cideries, would you be willing to drive and just take me as a passenger?
I will. You get a ticket here.
You got
I
a
will
deal.
drive you, Detlef, and I will have fun.
Do they have meaderies there?
No, but I have a friend that makes mead.
Okay.
That's the closest I can get to it.
Because they've got some outside Denver.
I can
There's a
believe
lot.
it.
Yeah, there's a lot of craft breweries in Colorado, but there's a couple of meaderies in there too, which is really interesting.
I will say this, nothing can quite compare to the breweries you have in Germany, but I will say this, the local craft breweries that we have in the US and in Shenandoah Valley in particular do rival any of the beers I've drank anywhere in the world. I mean, they're just, actually we have just on the other side of the Blue Ridge, there's a place that does Dark Hollow stout, and it's better than Guinness. So that's all I can say about it. Another amenity is the Red Wing Roots Musical Festival in July. Little caveat, this year it's going to be in June. So if you are thinking of coming here, you better check the schedule, because I think it's the last weekend in June. And for this year, for some reason, I don't know, it was closed in 2020, which was very sad for all of us. 2021, remember last year, there was a time between like May and late July when everybody was getting vaccinated and the cases went way down. I mean, I have a son who works in the hospital with COVID patients. He's like, we hardly have anybody in the hospital. So the Red Wings Roots Festival was on, and no, there wasn't a super spreader event or anything. I think most of the people there were probably vaccinated. Anyway, we had it. And then of course, then Delta came along, and then Omicron. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's roots music, Americana. It's in this place called Natural Chimneys County Park. We have this kind of stuff around here in Virginia. And you can see there's one stage over here, and the crowd's all facing another stage. It's actually, this stage is what they're facing right here. So there's two main stages, and they just alternate between groups. And they do have a wide variety of music. They don't just have Americana. They're bringing in a broader range of music genres and styles, which I really appreciate. And so, they're set up in one stage while the band plays a set for an hour and a half on the other stage. This is actually one of our local groups, the Judy Chops. They've been around for about 10 years, quite a unique band. They're always changing their lineup, but they usually have the lead singer and the guitarist are quite local characters. Anyhow, we have a good music scene here in Harrisonburg. And of course, an hour over the mountain is Charlottesville. The Shenandoah Valley is also a great place for road and mountain biking. That's actually Reddish Knob, that's the highest point in this part of Virginia. It's a kind of a destination climb once a year to prove that you aren't dead, that you can still climb to the top of Reddish Knob. That's me with one of my son's friends. If you are a road biker, this is what the countryside looks like near me. So it's a lot of fun for biking. It's actually the mountain biking capital, Virginia. So, I mean, if any of you aren't road bikers or mountain bikers, if you do know someone, tell them, go to Harrisonburg, Virginia. Russ says it's the best place. We do get groups that just show up down here from other parts of the country, and they stay in the hotels and they go out riding on our roads. They're organized rides. So there's a lot you can do. You can go kayaking the South River. That's actually my wife kayaking in December of 2020. We went out on a 50-something degree day. The water was high. You can get picked up at one end, dropped off at one end and picked up at the other end. The South River, if I show you here on a map, one of the funny things about the Shenandoah River is that it splits in half when it comes down from the north. So I shouldn't say come down. The Shenandoah River flows south to north, which is, a little bit unusual. It comes into Harper's Ferry right here. And this is the Shenandoah River. That's the Potomac River. And the Shenandoah River, as it comes up from the south, it's kind of misstating it to say that it splits. There's two branches of the river come together. This is the South River. And however, they do go on each side of this is the Massanutten Ridge. Look how the river goes back and forth. It looks kind of like an EKG, not a healthy EKG either, as it goes up and down the valley like this. And what gets more confusing is when you get down here near where I live, the South River itself splits, and it has a middle and a north and a southern fork. And then up here is the North Fork of the Shenandoah that branched off way back there, runs up this way. And so within a few miles of where I live, there's two North rivers, and they're both part of the Shenandoah River, but they're not the same river. Eventually they will be. So there's kayaking. And if you want to go about an hour away, there's of course one of the famous sites over by Charlottesville, Monticello, up on a hill. And they've really revamped Monticello over recent years. I think they've done a lot to acknowledge the fact that it was built by Jefferson's slaves, and there's a lot in the history now, taking into the life, taking into account the plantation, what it was like if you were a slave living there, and the work you did. So it's quite a good reinterpretation of it. If you want to go an hour and a half north of where I live, the north end of Shenandoah Valley, where the Shenandoah River comes into the Potomac, is of course Harper's Ferry. And some of you, here's the Shenandoah River flowing north up to the Potomac, which is right here. This is a better look of the Potomac, the Shenandoah River coming from the south. And many of you have been in my other classes, and I tell you that one of my favorite and all-time favorite places in the East Coast is Harper's Ferry. It's where the two rivers come together, but more importantly, it's where the Potomac River kind of finishes cutting through the Allegheny Mountains. And on one side, this is the Blue Ridge, kind of comes down here. And so this is Virginia on the east bank of the Shenandoah River. And where I'm taking the picture from, the north bank of the Potomac, is Maryland, and in the between is West Virginia. Of course, this was once Virginia back before the Civil War. The entire town down here has been restored to what it was like in the 1850s. So there's two periods of history they emphasize. There's a kind of pre-Civil War history leading up to John Brown's raid. Of course, John Brown staged a raid here. There was a federal armory and a federal arsenal. Armory is where they make weapons, and arsenals where they store them. I think I got that correct, not backwards. And his idea was to create a slave uprising. It failed. He was captured and hung. But many people, including me, would say that touched off the Civil War. This is the engine house where he had his last stand. But so there's a lot of that pre-Civil War history, what slavery, what happened leading up to it. And then after the war, and by the way, Harper's Ferry, this is a steep hill going all the way up here. It's just beautiful to walk to get to the top. After the Civil War, Harper's Ferry was the home of Storrs College, which was one of the first schools for freedmen. And it was a school, college level, up for 80 years. And at Storrs College is where part of the Niagara movement, which was the forerunner of the NAACP, got its start. And the Storrs movement met 1 year at the Niagara movement met 1 year with W.E.B. Du Bois at Storrs College. So there's all that history, and all these little buildings down here are like a living museum. You can go in, you can read all about that. It's a national historical park, and so it's very hard to find parking down in town, but about 2 miles away there is a parking lot, an entrance. If you've got your senior pass, you get in free. There's a shuttle running every few minutes over here into town, so you can leave your car out there and come into town. Besides being in town, you can also cross over the bridge here. There's a footpath and a bike path along this side of the railroad bridge. It's kept separate from the trains because this is a living train bridge. Trains still cross over it. And when you get to the other side, you can hike up to here. This is Maryland Heights. That's where I was taking the picture from. So this picture up here is from Maryland Heights up here. And that's going above the railroad bridge. And also on this side is the C&O towpath. The C&O Canal ran along there. And it is a fabulous place to spend a day or 2 days. Lots of good restaurants, some nice gift shops, artisans, places all along here to get neat crafts. And again, good restaurants, nice place to eat, but just fun to watch. And it's a beautiful place to be. Another look, this is looking up the Potomac River toward the west. So this is where the Potomac River kind of makes its final cut through the Allegheny Mountains. And that's, by the way, one reason that the canal failed was that the Potomac River is cutting through the Allegheny Mountains, and they are subject to frequent floods, especially in the spring. and the canal kept flooding kept flooding. The river would flood and the canal would get flooded over and wrecked, and they'd have to rebuild it anyway. Another look. So you can climb all the way up here. There's a great old hotel up here that has a fabulous view down over the river and valley. There's about Storer College, which was up on the top of the hill. Okay, well, hopefully today you got a bit of a taste of the many offerings of Western Virginia. Let me show you again on a map Harper's Ferry, the last place that I was. So again, to give you that perspective on the valley, there's Harrisonburg. Down here is Lexington, the far south part of the valley. And up here in the north is Harper's Ferry. And at Harper's Ferry, you are only about at most an hour's drive, maybe 45 minutes from Washington, D.C. So if you're staying in the D.C. area, it's very nice, very easy way to get out there.
Did you tell them about Luray Caverns?
I didn't. Teresa, do you want to tell them about Luray Caverns? Let's see. They're down here.
No, you're a better commentator.
Well, this is the Massanutten Ridge, and this is the town of Luray, which is midway down sort of the eastern side of the valley, eastern side of the Massanutten Ridge. And there are a lot of places in the Shenandoah Valley that have caverns and caves that have stalagmites and stalactites. Let's show them, Teresa.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there. And don't forget that Stoughton also has the music festivals in the park.
That's right. This is Luray Caverns, and this is what they look like here. That's a feature of these very old mountains. Their water leaked in, that had been mineral in it for tens of thousands and maybe millions of years, and made these formations. I haven't been in there though. I need to go in there. And this one here is the one that has a pipe organ in it.
Yes, that's right.
And I've been hearing about Luray Caverns ever since I'm a kid. Teresa, now that you said that, I'm going to have to go there this year, and I'll take some pictures and then I'll add that.
Yeah, I usually go every year.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. That's why I like it when people come to these classes and remind me of things that I forgot to say. Any more questions about Shenandoah Valley?
So what's the best time to come and visit? Springtime or fall?
The two best times a year are springtime and fall. The best time of year to come is around May 1st, because we have absolutely overwhelming numbers of dogwoods, redbuds, every kind of flowering tree. It's beautiful. The temperature is beautiful. The next best time to come is like the first week of October. The colors are coming out. I mean, all through the fall, we get colors, and because they're mountains, the colors sort of descend down the mountainsides. They start at the top, and it's cooler, so it's not too hot. And we have apple festivals and all sorts of things going on here. So just make sure you don't come on a weekend that there's a football game at JMU. That's the state university in town here, because you won't find a place to stay. Or don't go far south all the way down to Virginia Tech. That's impossible. The highway becomes a parking lot after their football games. But that's way far south. So my favorite times of year here are April into May, and then late September into October, when the temperatures are perfect. We get fall colors all the way up into the end of October, sometimes maybe even early November. Kind of depends on the season, how dry it is, the temperatures. But there's a lot going on, and it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, where you live is absolutely gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Nikki.
Yes, I have a question, Russ. Where you were showing us where the Shenandoah kind of splits, there is a town there called Front Royal.
Yeah,
I
Front
saw it
Royal.
on the map. Is that known for anything special
That's
historically?
yes. It's that is a name from British colonial times, and I once read where that name came from. It's known today simply as the place where the Skyline Drive starts. Most people know Front Royal, Virginia is where you pick up the Skyline Drive. It's a very charming, very, very pretty little town. I've gone there and eaten a meal. So you could spend an hour looking around the shops. I will show you again on the map because we got time. Something that's kind of neat in the Shenandoah Valley. And I know do you guys have another class? No, this is Thursday. Friday's the day you have a class. And that's at 4 o'clock actually. So when you're coming down the valley here, so Luray is kind of on the eastern side of the valley. So this is the Massanutten Ridge, kind of divides the valley in half. This is Interstate 81, which is also known as the local parking lot. There is an accident one direction or the other that stops traffic every day on Interstate 81. But just next to Interstate 81 is Route 11. And Route 11 is a pretty drive. And if you're down where I am here in Harrisonburg, as you head north and you get to Newmarket, there's all these charming towns: Newmarket, Mount Jackson, Edinburgh, Woodstock, Strasburg, really nice places with all sorts of antiques and artisan shops, restaurants. And what is really going to be cool here, Teresa, if you get a bike, they're going to put, there's a railroad line that is in the process of being abandoned or turned back over. And the state wants to buy it and build a rails to trails from Front Royal all the way down here to Timberville near me. So we're hoping in the next 5 to 10 years that rails to trail is built. Actually, if they put their mind to it, they can build it in about 2 years, but there are some skeptics around here. A rails to trails is one of the truly great amenities that any community can have. I forget, I've read recently how many hundreds of millions of dollars the Great Allegheny Passage has brought in tourism to Western Pennsylvania. So we're hoping we get that rails to trails in, because these are very charming towns. All these towns, Strasburg, Woodstock, Tomsbrook, Edinburgh, Mount Jackson, Newmarket, Timberville, all want that rails to trails to be built because they know how many people it will bring to town.
And that's the best route to take anyway, to go through the small towns instead of getting on 81. There's so many exciting things along the way.
I totally agree with you. I started driving it in recent years. I tried to give myself extra time so I could just go up Route 11. It takes about an extra half an hour to drive to Washington that way. And part of it is because I had a work colleague and then a friend were killed on Interstate 81 accidents. And for a while, I could just, it was really hard just to get on the interstate after that. So anyway, Route 11 is the better way to drive. It's a little bit slower, but these are really charming towns to go through, and you can stop.
And then you could go off to Route 3 and go into historic Fredericksburg.
There you go. Fredericksburg is also a neat town. Yes. Fredericksburg is down here, right there. And this is where Teresa is from, Alexandria up here, which is an old town.
Yep, old George Washington. Russ, what about where the Shenandoah also takes you, where you could get onto the Blue Ridge Parkway that goes all through North Carolina, South Carolina, all?
Yes, I'll share my screen again. I'll show you. When you're on the Blue Ridge Park on the Skyline Drive, so it starts again up here in Front Royal and goes down here. This little thin white road is the Skyline Drive. See this green trail? That's the Appalachian Trail. It parallels it. So if you ever want to say you hike the Appalachian Trail, you can do it. You get up on Skyline Drive and you park at one of these little overlooks, and where the Appalachian Trail crosses over, and you can hike on the Appalachian Trail a bit. And then you could say, when someone says, have you ever hiked the Appalachian Trail? You can say yes. You just won't say that you only hiked it for 15 minutes or an hour. Down here, the two routes meet, And right down here, this becomes right here at Afton, Interstate 64 junction. This becomes the Blue Ridge Parkway. Now, I have an ambition. My wife and I were discussing this the other day, Teresa, in maybe June or July. We're just going to take a slow travel trip down on the Blue Ridge Parkway. We're going to actually start in Front Royal, drive Skyline Drive, and then we're going to get on the Blue Ridge and keep on going. And we're not going to have any agenda. We don't know exactly where we're going to stay or where we're going to stop. We're just going to drive it, go on outlooks, because the Blue Ridge Parkway, Teresa's right, goes all the way. This is it here. Right here. It is a national parkway, and it's got hiking, and it goes all the way down to past Asheville, North Carolina. I better scroll all the way out because it goes way down here. This is it. And goes past Roanoke, Virginia. And anyway, it continues on all the way to, this is North Carolina down here. And I've been on it in North Carolina as well. South of Bristol, Tennessee. If you want to get a sense of where I am, I've gone down here into North Carolina. And I'm looking for Asheville, which should be right here. So somewhere down here, the Blue Ridge Parkway ends. And if I'm not mistaken, this is it right here, unless this is it. I've been on it, and I even drove up to Mount Mitchell, which is the highest point in the eastern United States from the Blue Ridge Parkway. Thanks for bringing that up. So we're just going to drive it, and then I'll document it, and then I'll come back and I will tell you about it. Any more questions? Yeah, Nikki, it is a tempting road trip. I have an electric car too, so I just have to make sure I know where to charge it. Big Meadows has electric car charging stations. So the National Park Service is thinking about that. Well, thanks for coming, everybody.